It is my view that the deceitful way the interview was obtained substantially influenced what my mother said. The interview was a major contribution to making my parents' relationship worse and has since hurt countless others. She's achieved, and it's quite a moment for her.
Royal tensions have erupted into financial warfare after Prince William reportedly cut off all funding to Queen Camilla's family, sparking headlines and palace panic.
I'm 75 now, and I can't remember anybody except the Queen being there.
The shocking decision came moments after Camilla's ex-husband dropped explosive revelations that rocked the monarchy and cast a dark shadow over the Queen Consort's past.
That BBC employees lied and used fake documents to obtain the interview with my mother, made lurid and false claims about the royal family, which played on her fears and fueled paranoia.
Furious and determined to protect the crown, William's move wasn't just personal, it was strategic. But what exactly did the ex-husband reveal that triggered such drastic action? And how will this shake the royal family's fragile balance? The truth behind this royal fallout is staggering.
I'm completely hopeless at it. I was a really bad actor at school, and I've never been able to master the art of mimicry. But
before dawn, before the first rays of dawn had even touched the palace gardens or glinted off the grand windows of the royal estate, something strange began to stir behind its towering stone walls. A quiet buzz started among the palace staff, barely audible at first, like wind rustling through dry leaves. But this wasn't just morning gossip. There was tension in the air, the kind that makes people lower their voices and glance over their shoulders. At first, no one took it seriously. After all, the royal family was no stranger to whispers. Rumors swirled around them constantly, wild, scandalous, often ridiculous. Most came and went, forgotten in a day. But this time felt different. This time, the whispers didn't fade. They grew louder, sharper. By the time the sky began to blush with the colors of sunrise, the palace was reeling. What had begun as a whisper was now thunder. Prince William had signed an order cutting off every single financial connection between the royal family and Queen Camilla's extended relatives. And it wasn't subtle. There were no gentle pauses for review, no quiet freezing of accounts. This was a clean, brutal break, a firm and final decision that sent a jolt through the heart of the monarchy. Gone were the quiet monthly payments that had mysteriously vanished into complex bank transfers. Gone were the generous maintenance grants, used to keep certain family homes polished and pristine. Gone were the funds labeled as charitable support, but known to serve personal luxuries. In one swift stroke, the money stopped. The press didn't hesitate. Before the official documents were even dry, the headlines were everywhere, screaming from television screens and newspaper racks. Prince William cuts off Camilla's family. Hashtag Royal Rift. Hashtag Crown Control. Hashtag Windsor War. News anchors and popular morning show hosts leapt on the breaking story with almost childlike excitement. The question on every lip was the same. Why now? What could have driven Prince William to make such a daring and public move? Speculation quickly spiraled into a frenzy. Some believed he had finally grown weary of all the secret deals and quiet negotiations happening behind closed doors. Others argued he was boldly signaling a new era for the royal family, one that valued openness, honesty, and clear boundaries about who truly belonged within the palace walls. But the most shocking theory was that he had unearthed something far darker, an explosive secret so dangerous it had to be confronted head-on. For days, the entire country buzzed with countless theories. Social media was ablaze with heated debates and breathless guesses. Old family photographs were pored over, every detail examined for hidden hints. Royal experts and palace insiders were rushed onto every talk show to weigh in. The suspense built like a rising tide. And then, When it seemed the tension couldn't grow any sharper, the moment everyone had been waiting for finally arrived. The answer emerged, not in an official statement or carefully written press release, but in a leak, a single recording, a voice, clear, unmistakable, confessing to something never meant for the public to hear. Something so shocking, it began to unravel decades of royal image crafting. With that one tape, the delicate threads holding the royal family's carefully stitched facade began to snap, one by one, and the world was watching. What influenced Prince William's decision to cut off Camilla's family funds? Did he come across a shocking discovery? Did he hear something? Let's find out what prompted the action. The confession that detonated the palace. The spark that ignited this royal scandal was a voice, old, heavy with regret, and edged with long-held resentment. On a quiet evening in his cozy Wiltshire home, Andrew Parker Bowles, Camilla's former husband, decided it was finally time to free his heavy heart. He settled into his old leather armchair, its seams worn by years of reflection, and held a small recorder in his trembling hand. At first, he simply planned to share a few personal stories for his children, a way to help them understand the complicated web of their family's history. But what began as a gentle trip down memory lane soon transformed into a revelation so shocking it could shake the royal household to its core. His rough, steady voice didn't merely suggest that Camilla had once been unfaithful. A detail alone, powerful enough to ignite endless media firestorms. Instead, he peeled back layers no one had dared touch before, exposing secrets that had long been buried beneath polished royal smiles. What he revealed in that dimly lit room was far more than anyone expected. His confession wasn't just gossip, it was the kind of explosive truth that could rewrite the royal narrative forever. Andrew claimed that Camilla had not only fallen in love with another man, but had quietly built a hidden empire over the decades. This was no simple affair of the heart. It was a deliberate, calculated scheme. With the careful precision of someone who had replayed these moments over and over in his mind, he described how she constructed a maze of secret trusts, offshore companies, and shadowy charities. These weren't acts of generosity. They were clever tools to funnel wealth into the hands of her closest allies and secure her influence far beyond what the public ever imagined. He painted a picture of a woman whose gentle laugh and kind eyes masked an extraordinary ambition. A woman who learned to twist every rule to her advantage. She wasn't simply trying to keep her love alive. She was weaving a web of power so intricate that even seasoned courtiers failed to see it tightening around them. Then came the words that would echo through the halls of Buckingham Palace like a funeral bell. "The kingdom?" Andrew whispered into the recorder, his voice rough with exhaustion. "Rests on a delusion." Those 6 words shattered the fragile calm that the royal family had fought for years to maintain. By some twist of fate, or perhaps by design, the recording did not stay locked away with family keepsakes. Within hours, it slipped into the hands of a journalist, hungry for the story of the decade. Suddenly, the audio was everywhere. News websites blared the revelations in all-caps headlines. Podcasters and social media influencers picked apart every sentence, speculating which companies were real and which names were code for even deeper secrets. Encrypted chat groups traded transcripts like forbidden treasure. At dawn, chaos gripped the palace. Sleep-deprived aides dashed between offices, arms loaded with files. Some tried to shred incriminating papers. Others frantically called lawyers, hoping to issue last-minute gag orders. But it was too late. The recording had already gone viral, its reach unstoppable. What Andrew meant as a private testimony had become a wrecking ball, smashing through decades of carefully constructed royal image. And as the sun rose, the world woke to a monarchy laid bare, its darkest secrets exposed for all to see. It is an obvious fact that there must be more to the story than what appears on the periphery. Let's travel briefly into the past. A love story turned chess game. To truly grasp why William acted with such force, you have to rewind the story by several decades, to a time when a simple polo match became the spark that lit an extraordinary and, at times, scandalous bond. It was the late 1960s. England's upper crust gathered on lush green fields to sip chilled champagne, exchange juicy bits of gossip, and watch young royals and dashing cavalry officers gallop across the turf. Among the crowd stood Andrew, a tall, striking young soldier whose easy smile and smooth charm made him a regular in royal social circles. Camilla was there too, and she was impossible to ignore. Even in her early 20s, she had a wild, magnetic energy. She laughed louder than any proper lady was supposed to, smoked her cigarettes with an air of defiance, and seemed completely untouched by the stiff rules of aristocratic etiquette. Many of the most important dukes and lords found themselves blushing and stammering in her presence. Before long, Andrew and Camilla became utterly inseparable. To everyone watching, they were the golden couple, floating above the ordinary expectations of polite society. When they finally married, the newspapers hailed them as the fresh face of modern aristocracy. Youthful, glamorous, and seemingly devoted to each other. Their country home, Bullhide Manor, became famous for its dazzling parties. Journalists loved to photograph them there, standing arm in arm on the front steps or playing with their dogs, projecting the image of a perfect, happy family. Behind those impressive doors, a hidden storm was slowly brewing. Their marriage wasn't simply built on love, it was wrapped up in desire for power and status. Andrew would later admit that he too had been unfaithful, having secret affairs. But he always claimed that Camilla's betrayals were different, that they were part of a plan rather than just moments of weakness. Everything shifted the day Prince Charles came back from his naval duty overseas. From then on, Camilla's gaze seemed to drift away from Andrew. At first, it was subtle, a coolness in her eyes, a slight distance in her touch. Over time, that distance grew, and Andrew felt powerless to stop it. He didn't lose her all at once in some dramatic heartbreak. Instead, she slipped away little by little, like sand falling through open hands. Each day brought a new crack in their bond, another quiet sign that her heart was no longer his. What began as a marriage full of promise was turning into a slow unraveling of trust, leaving Andrew to wonder if love had ever truly stood a chance against ambition and desire. There was the phone call that stretched late into the night, ending with Camilla's hushed laughter. The trip to London that dragged on hours past her promised return. The secretive whispers she refused to explain. Each small act was like a needle, pricking away at Andrew's pride and certainty. By the early 1980s, the truth became impossible for him to deny. He was no longer her true partner. He was simply a stepping stone, someone she needed to reach the next higher rung of her life. While Andrew wrestled with that slow, humiliating loss, Camilla was quietly laying the groundwork for her future. She built a hidden network of financial security, bank accounts, discreet investments, and favors, carefully traded and collected. It was all hidden in plain sight, invisible to those charmed by her smile. And she was patient. She knew there would come a day when she would need that financial safety net more than ever. And she was determined to be ready when it came. Trust Prince William's with his meticulous nature. He didn't just dismiss or hop on the information he was given. He verified and researched the facts. However, his reaction after getting the report was unexpected. How did he react to the report? Let's find out. The prince who refused to look away. Many years had passed before Prince William finally received the thick final audit report that would either confirm or disprove Andrew's explosive claims. As he flipped through the pages, his hands began to tremble. Each figure was more shocking than the last. Page after page revealed a staggering truth. Millions of pounds had been quietly transferred every single year from the royal treasury straight into the pockets of Camilla's extended family. It wasn't technically illegal, no laws had been broken, but to William, it felt completely indefensible. How could this have been allowed to go on, hidden in plain sight, for decades? The discovery sparked a fierce storm inside the palace walls. Advisors gathered in tense meetings, voices rising until they bounced off the gilded ceilings. Some counselors urged caution. They warned that cutting off the funds would look like a personal attack on Camilla's family, a move that might shatter what little unity remained in the royal household. The tabloids, they said, would seize the story and twist it into proof of William's bitterness. Others felt just as strongly in the opposite direction. If he failed to act, they argued, he would be accepting decades of quiet corruption. He would be showing the public that nothing had really changed, that the crown still protected its own, no matter what. The debate raged for days. The tension was so thick it pressed on everyone's chest. William hardly ate or slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the numbers, felt the weight of generations watching him, waiting to see if he would prove worthy of the crown or crumble under it. One evening, while angry crowds gathered beyond the palace gates and the world's media waited for a statement, Catherine found him in the dim hallway. Though she herself was weakened by illness, she reached for his hand. Her voice was soft but steady as she spoke the words that would finally cut through the noise in his mind. "Do nothing in anger," she whispered, looking straight into his eyes. "But do not do nothing." Those words struck something deep inside him, a memory of his mother, Diana, and her belief in standing up for what was right, no matter how painful. Later that night, long after midnight, William slipped into his late mother's study. The room smelled faintly of old books and roses. He set the audit dossier on the heavy wooden desk beneath Diana's portrait. Her kind eyes seemed to follow him as he paced back and forth. All around him, the faces of former monarchs stared down from their frames. Some looked stern, some seemed almost sad. With a deep, weary sigh, William finally stopped pacing the room. The weight of his decision pressed heavily on his chest. There was no going back now. Slowly, he lowered himself into the chair, picked up the pen, and stared at the official document on the table. For a moment, his hand trembled in hesitation. His mind raced with memories and consequences. But then, with firm resolve and one decisive stroke, he signed his name. It was done. From that moment on, all financial support to Camilla's family would be cut off completely, and without warning. A silent storm had just begun. The revelation opened up scars that the royal family has tried to forget. It brought back memories of the Camilla Gate that shook the monarchy more than 3 decades ago. Let's dive briefly into the details of Camilla Gate, the scandal that shook the British monarchy. Tampon Gate, also known as Camilla Gate, was one of the most shocking royal scandals of the 1990s. It centered around an intimate phone conversation between Charles, the Prince of Wales, who would later become King Charles III, and Camilla Parker Bowles, his longtime lover who is now Queen Camilla. Although the call took place in December 1989, it wasn't until 4 years later, in January 1993, that the British tabloids splashed it across their front pages, causing a media firestorm. The recording was no ordinary eavesdrop. A radio enthusiast using a powerful scanning device had stumbled upon the 6-minute chat by accident. Charles was staying at a friend's country estate, while Camilla was at her own home. Their flirtatious talk quickly turned into something far more personal. In the tape, Charles famously joked about wanting to be so close to Camilla that he could live inside her trousers, even suggesting he might reincarnate as a tampon. The bizarre comment turned the future king into the butt of countless jokes and late-night comedy skits. The timing of the tape's publication could not have been worse. Just weeks before, Charles and Princess Diana had formally announced their separation to Parliament. Already bruised by gossip and tension, the royal family now faced humiliation on a scale they'd never known. The press portrayed Camilla as the villain who had destroyed Diana's fairy tale marriage, while Charles's reputation took a beating. Overnight, the public's view of the prince changed from dignified heir to the throne to an awkward, unfaithful husband caught in an embarrassing scandal. Ken Worf, who served as Diana's personal bodyguard, later wrote in his book Guarding Diana that the reaction inside royal circles was savage. Loyal supporters of the monarchy were stunned. Some even questioned if Charles was truly fit to be king. Diana herself was reportedly horrified and disgusted, repeating over and over, "It's just sick." But there was more to this sordid story than just tabloid headlines. William Rees-Mogg, the respected editor of The Times, publicly wondered whether British intelligence was involved. He pointed out that this was the third secret phone call involving royals to appear in the newspapers. Just before Tampon Gate broke, there had been two other leaks, one tape between Diana and her lover, James Gilby, mockingly dubbed Squidgy Gate, and another between Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York. Rees-Mogg believed these were no random coincidences. He speculated that MI5, Britain's domestic security agency, might have been secretly recording the royals under the guise of protecting them, only for someone to leak the tapes later. Whether the recordings were the result of deliberate spying or opportunistic eavesdropping remains a mystery. What is certain is that Tampon Gate forever changed how the public saw the royal family. It stripped away the illusion of perfection and left a lasting impression of vulnerability, scandal, and human frailty behind palace walls. The effect of Prince William's decision was unexpected as it hit hard on Camilla's family. What did Camilla say or do in reaction to the revelation? Did she deny it or cover her face in shame? Let's dig into the details. A crown in the Crossfire. The fallout struck with the force of a giant wave crashing over everything in its path. No one had expected the scandal to explode so quickly or so violently. Almost overnight, Camilla vanished from the public eye, slipping behind the palace's high stone walls. But while she stayed hidden, her team of sharp-tongued lawyers fanned out across television studios and newspapers. They issued statements denying every accusation, deflecting blame onto others, and hinting they would countersue anyone who dared to keep digging. Meanwhile, Charles found himself frozen in the middle of an impossible choice. On one side was the woman who had stood by him for decades, through mockery and crisis, and whom he had finally made his queen. On the other was his own son, William, whose determination to protect the royal image clashed directly with Camilla's defense. Charles tried to project calm authority. He released a carefully worded statement. His Majesty retains full confidence in both the Queen and the Prince of Wales. But no one truly believed him. Those words were nothing but a polished mask covering a man in deep pain and confusion. Beyond the palace gates, the crisis turned the monarchy into a public battleground. Loyal monarchists, many elderly and tearful, waved their Union Jacks and insisted tradition must be defended at all costs. They camped along the palace fences, singing anthems and shouting messages of support. But just across the street, angry Republican protesters shouted for the crown to be abolished. They lifted bold signs that read, "Expose the trusts, no more secrets." The fury spread far beyond Britain's shores. In Australia, politicians used the scandal to call for a national vote to finally break ties with the monarchy. In Canada, voices grew louder, demanding the royal family's image be stripped from coins and bills. And in several Caribbean nations, where resentment had simmered for years, the uproar became the final push toward full independence. As news channels counted the polls, trust in the royal family dropped below 50%, an unthinkable low. Yet even in this storm of doubt and anger, there were glimmers of something hopeful. Some believed William's stand for openness and truth could be the start of a more honest modern monarchy, one no longer afraid of its own shadows. But others were terrified that this break in the royal armor might never heal, that it could mark the slow unraveling of centuries of tradition. Inside Buckingham Palace, a single question haunted every hallway. How do you repair a family ripped apart by pride, ambition, and principle? Late at night, in the hush of the palace chapel, Charles knelt alone beneath the ancient stained glass windows. His hands shook as he pressed them together. His heart felt as if it were tearing itself in two. To defend Camilla meant risking the bond with his son forever. To stand beside William meant betraying the woman who had shared his life for so long. And so the king prayed, not begging for triumph or the public's favor, but simply for one clear answer. But clarity, like peace, would not come. So, what do you think about Camilla's scandal and William's decision on Camilla's family? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe